Hello friends, and welcome to today's episode. The forester kept walking, and even though he was supposed to be counting the number of trees in the woods, he ended up finding something that no one thought would be there. A torn orange tent stood in the middle of what used to be a campsite. It looked scary. There was a blue sleeping bag, an old phone, and a notebook inside. The forester didn't know it at the time, but he had solved a mystery that had been around for years on the Appalachian Trail. Jerry, as her friends and family called Geraldine Largay, was 66 years old and happily married. She and George had a daughter named Carrie, who later had her own kids. Jerry was a wife, a mother, and a grandmother, but she always wanted to be more than that. In the end, it was her desire to be more than that that led to her downfall. Jerry and George lived in Florida, in the city of Atlanta. And Jerry liked being outside. She loved being outside more than anything else, so much so that she joined the Nature Conservancy in her area. She was interested in her neighborhood and joined a local group for newcomers, where she did things like quilting and camping. But she had something much bigger in mind. Jerry couldn't stop thinking about going on a hike along the Appalachian Trail. From Springer Mountain in Georgia in the south to Mount Katahdin in Maine in the north, the Appalachian Trail is very long. The trail is known all over the world for how dangerous it is. The trail goes through mountains the whole way, and the ups and downs in elevation are the same as going to the top of Mount Everest and back 16 times. But the deadliest road in America also has other risks. Even though walkers are taught to be aware of risks like slipping and falling, getting lost, and bad weather, most don't know that the famous 2,160-mile trail has a darker side. Since 1974, 13 people have been killed along the Appalachian Trail, according to records. The last murder happened in 2011, and many of them are still not solved. The bad guy hasn't been caught yet. Still, Jerry couldn't stop himself from going back to the track. George knew the trail had a bad name, but he backed his wife. In fact, he decided to sell their family home in Atlanta and move in with their daughter in Brentwood, Tennessee, so they could be closer to the trail. Jerry started to make plans for her trip as the Appalachians loomed over her. But before she even started, she ran into a problem. Jerry couldn't take a big pack because he had hurt his back in the past. So, her husband agreed to meet her at different places along the road with supplies as she went. Now that he didn't have to worry about getting goods, Jerry was finally ready to start. She would never make it home, though. On April 23, 2013, Jerry started her hike. She set out from Harper's Ferry, West Virginia, with her friend Jane Lee. Before getting a ride back to where they started, the women planned to walk north from the trail's middle to Mount Katahdin. Then, they would move along the southern half of the road and go down to Springer Mountain. At least at first, it looked like everything was going well. Jerry and Jane didn't let the rain stop them from moving along the path. Jerry wrote about all the plants she saw in her notebook with great enthusiasm. She even gave herself a funny trail name, Inchworm. In the beginning of her trip, Jerry's journal writings were filled with unbridled joy, but they were a far cry from the scary message she would write later. Everything changed at the end of June. Jane got word that there was an issue back home with her family, so she left the trail. Jerry, on the other hand, didn't seem surprised and kept hiking on his own. She slept in homemade shelters when her husband couldn't get to her because she was too far away. By July, she had gone about 900 miles on the northern part of the way. When she had only 200 miles left until she got Mount Katahdin, things went from bad to worse. Jerry couldn't get to George in time to ask him to get more supplies for the last part of the walk. The ground was very dangerous for 22 miles, so Jerry thought it would take her 2 nights. She found a place to stay at Poplar Ridge on the evening of July 2021. The next morning, she left again. Jerry waved goodbye to a man she'd met at the shelter, and then she left again. But that day, she got off the path by accident. She was looking for a place to go to the bathroom when she ended up in a tree cemetery. Many years ago, people cut down trees in that area. There were stumps and pieces of broken trees everywhere. Jerry realized then that she was lost. Another person was about to die on the road. Jerry was lost, off the trail, and confused, so she quickly sent a message to her husband. She told George that she was having trouble finding the trail and asked him to tell the Appalachian Mountain Club so they could send help. "I'm having trouble. Lost the way. Now lost," she wrote. "Can you call AMC and ask if a trail worker can help me? I'm north of Woods Road, somewhere." But because George's phone didn't have service, the message never got to him. Jerry may have gone out again in search of higher ground and a place with a better service. She fought her way through the graves of trees, but it didn't help. At last, she made a place to sleep for the night. During this time, George waited at the agreed DuPont spot, but his wife never showed up. But he didn't think too much about it at the time because there was a bad storm in the area. But when she didn't show up the next morning, he knew something was wrong. On the second day, George told the police what had happened. In a huge effort to find and save the people, the Maine Warden Service called on hundreds of volunteers to search the area. But the man who had seen Jerry last gave them wrong information that led them on a wild rabbit chase. In the meantime, it turned out that Jerry had tried to get in touch with her husband again. She had tried to get George to call the police right away. That's it for today, friends. Please let us know what you think about this story. Thank you for watching, and we'll see you soon for more amazing stories.